Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Assalamu alaikum, dear participants. Welcome to this session of textual study of the Quran. As you all know, this textual study draws heavily from Ustaz Javed Ghamidi's Al-Bayan and the way he has understood the Quran. It is basically a description and an explanation of the Quran according to his understanding and based on his text. So the translation itself owes its translation to Ustaz Ghamidi's translation of the Quran. And we are studying Surah al-Nisa. We are about to reach its end, and we had also discussed this that Surah ends well before the end, and around verse 120. And the last 80 or 675 verses they consist of answers to four questions that had arisen during the time of revelation of this surah. And this actually shows the living relationship that the surah has regarding the environment and the surroundings in which it is revealed. So many a time this has happened, and we have seen this earlier on in Surah Al-Imran, and also, which by the way is the counterpart of this surah. Both surahs have questions at the end which are answered, and these questions have been at times literally posed by people, or at times they're just found in the environment and they're found in the minds of people, and they are taken up as important questions and their answers are given. So in this section, we will study the third question which has been raised, and this time the question has been raised by the people of the book. Earlier on, we have studied two questions. One of them was by common Muslims, and the second one was from the hypocrites. And in this second question, it is the people of the book who have actually presented this question in the form of a demand. And they would say that instead of the Quran, they want a book, they want to see a book being directly revealed to them from the heavens. Only after that are they willing to embrace faith. So basically, it's something of a visual miracle that they are demanding, that they would like to see a book being directly revealed to them from the heavens and from the skies, and then they will be willing to profess faith. And this basically then takes the answer takes the form of a very angry reply from the Almighty, in which He has presented a charge sheet in which they were the ones who were the first. They should have been the first to profess faith in the Quran, because in their own scriptures, of course, was the prophecy of the arrival of the last messenger of God and the last book of God. So therefore, they were expected to be the first ones to believe in the Quran. But instead of doing so, they dilly-dallied and they had all sorts of excuses to present. And now, of course, near the end, they wanted that, well, they'll only profess faith if they see a book being directly revealed to them. And now we start off with precisely these words. It says, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. يسألك أهل الكتاب أن تنزل عليهم كتابا من السماء فقد سألوا موسى أكبر من ذلك فقالوا أرنا الله جهرة فأخذتهم الصاعقة بظلمهم ثم اتخذوا العجل من بعد ما جاءتهم البينات فعفونا عن ذلك وآتينا موسى سلطانا مبينا. These people of the book ask you to bring down directly to them a book from the heavens instead of this Quran. So this is no matter of wonder. Of Moses they made an even greater demand. They had asked him, show us God face to face. So the Arabic words are Arinallah Jahra. They had asked him, show us God face to face. Then, because of this rebelliousness, a thunderbolt struck them. And it says that because of this rebelliousness, a thunderbolt struck them. After that, they deified the calf. They deified the calf even when obvious signs had come to them. Yet we still forgave this and had given Moses clear dominance on them. So, if you look at the start of this paragraph, of course, you'll find out that the remaining speech, as we shall see in a short while, it is full of an emotional expression from the Almighty. It's like a whole speech from the beginning to the end, based on the charge sheet which is against them, and the force and flow of this discourse is such that it becomes even at times difficult to ascertain where the speech has ended. It's such a forceful and furious discourse that one can clearly see that this rage is coming out of every word. It is like the rage of the speaker that has actually taken the form of words in this expression. Now, the desire to observe God is for satisfaction. If that is the case of satisfaction and assurance, then there is it's not condemnable. So Muslims are told that if they are being asked that they shall only that their opponents shall only believe in the Quran if they see a book being directly revealed to them, then they are told that this is no matter of wonder, because in their ancestors had asked Moses something even graver, and they had said they would like to see God face to face. Arinallaha jahratan. So, if the desire to observe God is for satisfaction and assurance, then this is not condemnable. But when this demand of the Israelites was a mere display of their uncertainty and skepticism, this is the actual situation, and it was actually an excuse for their rejection and denial. They could not be convinced in any manner that God had conversed with Moses. So they were reprimanded. The Quranic words used to convey this meaning, of course, they tell us, فَأَخَذَتْهُمُ الصَّاعِقَةُ بِظُلْمِهِمْ, that when they wanted this fulfillment of their demand, that they would like to see God face to face. So the Quran says, فَأَخَذَتْهُمُ الصَّاعِقَةُ بِظُلْمِهِمْ, then because of this rebelliousness, a thunderbolt struck them. So these words actually imply that God was not unjust to them in any way. And that is why it is said that it is because of their own doing that this has happened. They are insisting on an experience which they could never have been able to bear. The result was that they were made to suffer the consequences. So this is something that they had to do. And then it says, ثُمَّ اتَّخَذُوا الْعِجْلَ مِنْ بَعْدِ مَا جَاءَتْهُمُ الْبَيِّنَاتُ فَعَفَوْنَا عَنْ ذَلِكَ وَآتَيْنَا مُوسَى سُلْطَانًا مُبِينًا. So now this is a very, a very important aspect of their history, which is being reminded to them, that they actually deified the calf. They started to worship the calf. And then the Quran says that the Almighty still forgave them. He relented and He gave clear dominance to Moses over them. And this was actually achieved by cleansing the Israelites of the criminals at the behest of Moses, peace be upon him, and no one could dare utter a word before him. So we find in the book of Exodus of the Bible that this incident has been recorded in a very graphic way. And it actually tells us that Moses stood at the gate of the camp and had said to these people that who is on the Lord's side? I mean, of course, meaning that who is with me. So a person who is with the Lord's side should come to me. And we know from the Bible that all the sons of Levi gathered around him. And so he said to them that the God of Israel says that put your sword on your side, each of you, and go to and fro from gate to gate throughout the camp, and each of you has to kill his brother and his companion and his neighbor. So those who were guilty of deifying the calf, they were told that their own brother is going to take them for task, because the only punishment of deliberate polytheism is death. So we are told in the Bible that the sons of Levi actually did according to what Moses had told them. And it is said again in the Bible that about 3,000 people were killed, and they were actually punished for this. And then, of course, those glorious words of Moses that they are so shiningly and so they're so beautifully laid out in the Bible, that it is said that today you have been ordained for the service of the Lord, each one at the cost of his son and of his brother, so that he might bestow a blessing upon you this day, signifying the fact that, well, if punishment is being meted out by your very close blood relations, then this is the reward that they're going to get. And the back, of course, they can do this again, but they will suffer the same thing. And this is how the Quran has said, وَآتَيْنَا مُوسَى سُلْطَانًا مُبِينًا, that we gave Moses a clear sign over them. And this clear sign was that the Almighty, through his hands, at the behest of his own words, through the swords of the tribes of the sons of Levi, these people were put to death because of deifying or worshipping the calf. And then it said, وَرَفَعْنَا فَوْقَهُمُ الطُّورَ بِمِيثَاقِهِمْ وَقُلْنَا لَهُمُ ادْخُلُوا الْبَابَ سُجَّدًا وَقُلْنَا لَهُمْ لَا تَعْدُوا فِي السَّبْتِ وَأَخَذْنَا مِنْهُمْ مِيثَاقًا غَلِيظًا. And we had lifted Tur over them with a covenant with them, and had directed them, enter the gates of the city, bowing your heads, and had said to them, do not be disobedient in the matter of the Sabbath. And all these things we had taken from them a firm covenant. So it is evident from the Quran, and of course the Bible is no different, that this covenant was taken from the Israelites in the valley of Tur. They were there, and it is absolutely something of a literal happening which the Quran and the Bible quote, that the Mount of Tur, it was actually extracted from its place and from its roots, and it was actually made to hang aloft on their heads like a roof, and it seemed to them that it would fall on them. So it was like a very grave situation, and it is this situation actually which the Quran is termed وَرَفَعْنَا فَوْقَهُمُ الطُّورِ, which means that we held Tur over them with this misaq, with this covenant. So it is the purpose, of course, was to portray the fact that the Lord Almighty has raised aloft Mount Tur over them, as well as the covenant that here is the covenant and here is Mount Tur. If this covenant is violated in anywhere, then their heads will be crushed by this very mountain. So this is the nature of how this covenant was taken. And then we also know that they were asked to enter a city of Palestine, after conquering which they were directed to enter it in a manner that showed their humility and modesty. So the Quranic words are Udkhulul Baba Sujjadan, that you have to enter the gates of their city with your heads bowed down. Not, of course, in the state of prostration, but in the form of a courtesy when you bow down. And La ta'adu fi sabt, they were told that they must not exceed the bounds in the matter of sabt. And akhazna minhum misaqan ghaliza, and we had taken from them a very firm covenant. Now we know that originally the Sabbath was Friday. Sabbath was Friday, but the Israelites changed it to Saturday. And for generations, this day was specified for them to worship God, signifying their covenant with Him. And on the day of Sabbath, working, going out and hunting, so much so that even lighting fire in their houses and taking service from their slave men and maidens was prohibited them. And this verse mentions the people of one of the cities and refers to the various subterfuges they had invented to liberate themselves from its restrictions, and in this manner they had made fun of God's Sharia. So this verse actually mentions the people of one of their cities, that they should not in any way be against the covenant that has been taken from them. And as I've just said, the original day of Sabbath was Friday, but the Israelites had changed it to Saturday. And we see that even later on, the followers of Jesus then changed it to Sunday. So we find this change being gradually being made. And this, of course, is also something which is history. And then, of course, the charge sheet is presented in a very, very vehement way. فَبِمَا نَقْضِهِمْ مِيثَاقَهُمْ وَكُفْرِهِمْ بِآيَاتِ اللَّهِ وَقَتْلِهِمُ الْأَنْبِيَاءَ بِغَيْرِ الْحَقِّ وَقَوْلِهِمْ قُلُوبُنَا غُلْفٌ بَلْ طَبَعَ اللَّهُ عَلَيْهَا بِكُفْرِهِمْ فَلَا يُؤْمِنُونَ إِلَّا قَلِيلًا. Then, because they broke their covenant, we laid a curse on them, and because they denied the revelations of God, and because they killed the prophets unjustly, and because they said, our hearts have a covering on them. No, in fact, it is God who has sealed their hearts because of their disbelief. So now they will seldom embrace faith. Clearly, this is what we find, that the Jews made this false accusation against Mary after Jesus had passed away. And we know that later, as far as Mary herself is concerned, as these verses are going to say, وَبِكُفْرِهِمْ وَقَوْلِهِمْ عَلَى مَرْيَمَ مُحْتَانًا عَظِيمًا, and because of their disbelief and because of their vicious accusation against Mary and because of their claim, we have killed the Messiah, Jesus, son of Mary. So again, it was Mary also who was deified, and after Jesus had passed away. And the words which are say, Inna qatalna Rasulullah. So وَقَوْلِهِمْ إِنَّا قَتَلْنَا مَسِيحَ عِيسَى ابْنَ مَرْيَمَ Rasulullah actually refer to the grave nature of the situation, that they had tried to kill Jesus, and no less than a prophet of God, no less than a messenger of God. And because of their claim, as the verse goes on to say, what was their claim? That we have killed the Messiah, Messiah Jesus, son of Mary, the messenger of God. So this is something that has to be understood. And next we find another parenthetical sentence, again giving that whole paragraph a further impetus vis-a-vis the vehement nature and the fury that can be found pervading all through it. So it says, وَمَا قَتَلُوهُ وَمَا صَلَبُوهُ وَلَكِنْ شُبِّهَ لَهُمْ وَإِنَّ الَّذِينَ اخْتَلَفُوا فِيهِ لَفِي شَكٍّ مِّنْهُ مَا لَهُمْ بِهِ مِنْ عِلْمٍ إِلَّا اتِّبَاعَ الظَّنِّ وَمَا قَتَلُوهُ يَقِينًا بَلْ رَفَعَهُ اللَّهُ إِلَيْهِ وَكَانَ اللَّهُ عَزِيزًا حَكِيمًا. So the Quranic words are actually that وَمَا قَتَلُوهُ وَمَا صَلَبُوهُ, even though neither did they kill him nor did they crucify him. وَلَكِنْ شُبِّهَ لَهُمْ. In fact, the matter was made muddled up for them. The matter was made ambiguous. They thought that they had killed Jesus, but this is something that never happened. And that is why we find an immediate negation of this, that they never were able they were never able to succeed in actually killing Jesus, and they thought that they had crucified Jesus, but in fact, as we know, that this never happened. Jesus was never crucified on the cross, and the whole situation was muddled up. And the way it was muddled up was that they think that perhaps what had happened was that they had ended up killing Jesus. But the most likely scenario is the one which is the one that we find being depicted in the Gospel of Barnabas. Barnabas himself was a disciple of Jesus. And if we read the Gospel of Barnabas, we find out that when Judas Iscariot, who was of course a disciple of Jesus, he was actually bribed by the chief priest of the Jews, and he had actually informed of the place where Jesus was. And because of this information, the guards had come to arrest Jesus. And we know that 4 angels at the behest of the Almighty took him away and transformed the voice and face of Judas Iscariot into exactly those of Jesus. So it was as if Jesus was taken away from there, and in his place, Judas was the one who was actually hung on the cross, who was crucified, and it was he who was able to, I mean, who he ended up in this situation. And in the Hebrew Bible, we know the words that he had screamed when he was being crucified: Eli, Eli, lema sabachthani. So Eli, Eli means, God, oh my God, why have you forsaken me? Why have you left me alone? Again, it's like a complaint or a made to God that I was the one who should have been saved, but that is what he had said. Eli, Eli, lema sabachthani. So these are the Hebrew words that are ascribed to him. So in fact, no one was able to even touch Jesus. It is while pointing out to this scenario that perhaps the Quran has dubbed it as being made muddled up for the Jews. So this muddling up or being ambiguous is exactly what is meant here by what Barnabas has depicted in his gospel. And the words وَإِنَّ الَّذِينَ اخْتَلَفُوا فِيهِ لَفِي شَكٍّ مِّنْهُ, which means that those who are disagreeing in this are inflicted with doubts about it. I mean, this is something that we have to understand, that about the nature of the incident itself, the Nazarenes or the Christians, they greatly differ with one another. And the mythology they have fashioned out has many discrepancies. And these discrepancies are the obvious outcome of the fact that they have based their version and reasoning on conjecture instead of reality. And in this manner, they have crucified themselves on the cross from which the Almighty had saved Jesus himself. So we have to understand that as far as the whole situation is concerned, there were so many people who had so many views about what had happened to Jesus, but all of them, as the Quran says, مَا لَهُمْ بِهِ مِنْ عِلْمٍ. So none of them have knowledge about it. إِلَّا اتِّبَاعَ الظَّنِّ. They are only following conjectures. وَمَا قَتَلُوهُ يَقِينًا. They certainly did not slay him. They certainly did not slay him. And then the real thing is then mentioned, but رَفَعَهُ اللَّهُ إِلَيْهِ. In fact, God had lifted him up to him. بَلْ رَفَعَهُ اللَّهُ إِلَيْهِ وَكَانَ اللَّهُ عَزِيزًا حَكِيمًا, which means that, of course, we know from Surah al-Imran what had happened, that in Surah al-Imran it is told that God told Jesus that I'm going to give you death, and then I'm going to lift you up to myself, which means that your body is not going to be harmed by them in any way. And that is what has happened. So after giving death, that is precisely the word which is mentioned in Surah al-Imran also, because the words are inni mutawaffika wa rafi'uka ilayya. I'll give death to you and lift you to myself. So that rafi'uka is the same as rafa'a here, which means that God is just going to take him away, and these people will not be able to in any way find the body of Jesus, and they can never be able to humiliate the body or in any way do anything that would be absolutely against it. So That is what is being said. And then finally it is being said, وَإِن مِّنْ أَهْلِ الْكِتَابِ إِلَّا لِيُؤْمِنَنَّ بِهِ قَبْلَ مَوْتِهِ وَيَوْمَ الْقِيَامَةِ يَكُونُ عَلَيْهِمْ شَهِيدًا. This is a list of their crimes. So if they are now demanding that a book other than the Quran be directly revealed to them from the heavens, just ignore them, O Prophet. Because remember, this was the demand from which the whole paragraph began. And in between, we find a whole chart sheet was then presented. And then finally, that the same question that had asked, which by the words, Yes, aluka ahlul kitab, it has turned back. And now the Prophet himself is being mentioned. And the way it has been mentioned, he's been mentioned is like this, that everyone among them, everyone from among these people of the book shall definitely believe in this Quran before his death, and on the day of judgment it will bear witness to them. So in other words, we have to understand that the word la yu'minanna bihi qabla mautihi refer to the fact that before the death of everyone who was there standing before the Prophet Muhammad, these of course the people of the book, each one of them will then be convinced, yes, that this Quran is absolutely true, and and they will believe in it. And this should be understood that through this whole reasoning that has been presented, that as far as the Quran is concerned, they will not be in any way able to deny what the Quran has said, and before they even pass away, they will believe in what the Quran has said. So it should be kept in mind that this sentence sounds warning and threat at the same time. In other words, today what the Prophet, peace be upon him, is trying to make them understand through the force of reasoning will materialize into reality in the near future, and they should contemplate on what they will do at that time. So each of these people will profess faith that this Prophet, the message that he is presenting and the Quran that he is presenting is absolute true. And this is precisely what has happened also, because we know that the truth of the Quran had come before them, and in this way they were forced to accept exactly what it had portrayed. So وَإِن مِّنْ أَهْلِ الْكِتَابِ إِلَّا لَيُؤْمِنَنَّ بِهِ, it refers clearly to the Prophet Muhammad and to the Quran, and not at all, as some people have contended, that it actually refers to Jesus, and they end up with a whole different interpretation of the verse. At the moment, that is not my intention to fully go into those details, but having said that, this verse is actually warning these people of the book that just as what has been said, that they'll be convinced that what the Quran has told them is absolutely true, and this truth will come before their eyes. And then it is said, فَبِظُلْمٍ مِّنَ الَّذِينَ هَادُوا حَرَّمْنَا عَلَيْهِمْ طَيِّبَاتٍ أُحِلَّتْ لَهُمْ وَبِصَدِّهِمْ عَنْ سَبِيلِ اللَّهِ كَثِيرًا. Then only because of the iniquity of these Jews. So zulm, iniquity, which means that they had done something absolutely against the call of their souls. And this is mentioned in Surah Anam also, that because of some of their misgivings, some of the very, very allowable things were made prohibited to them. So that is why the Quran says, فَبِظُلْمٍ مِّنَ الَّذِينَ هَادُوا حَرَّمْنَا عَلَيْهِمْ طَيِّبَاتٍ. That because of their own, in their own injustice and iniquity, we had also forbidden them wholesome things which had been allowed to them, and because they have been stopping others a lot from the path of God. So this was like a retribution, that things were made prohibited to them which were otherwise absolutely allowed. And then another thing which is added to their chart sheet is وَأَخْذِهِمُ الرِّبَا وَقَدْ نُهُوا عَنْهُ وَأَكْلِهِمْ أَمْوَالَ النَّاسِ بِالْبَاطِلِ وَأَعْتَدْنَا لِلْكَافِرِينَ مِنْهُمْ عَذَابًا أَلِيمًا. And because they have been taking interest even though they had been stopped from it, and because they have been unjustly devouring the wealth of others, and it is for their disbelievers that we have prepared a woeful punishment. So this is the price that they have paid, that they have persisted to charge interest. They were told not to charge interest, but they charged it, and then they devoured the wealth of other people by illegal means, through embezzlement, through corruption, and so many other things. And then it is said, وَأَعْتَدْنَا لِلْكَافِرِينَ مِنْهُمْ عَذَابًا أَلِيمًا. So this is how they had fared. And we know that the prohibition of interest is something which is explicitly mentioned in the Bible, the book of Exodus, in the book of Leviticus. There are clear references that charging of interest is something that they are in no position, they should never do that. But instead of following their own book, of course the Torah had mentioned the prohibition of interest, they ended up still following it, and still charging interest. And that is why the Quran says that because of these very iniquities, some of the things that were absolutely allowable to people, they were made disallowed to them because of these misgivings. And then it is said, لكن الراسخون في العلم منهم والمؤمنون يؤمنون بما أنزل إليك وما أنزل من قبلك والمقيمين الصلاة والمؤتون الزكاة والمؤمنون بالله واليوم الآخر أولئك سنؤتيهم أجرا عظيما. However, those of deep knowledge among them and those who have faith believe in what has been revealed to you and what was revealed before you, and are especially diligent in their prayer and pay the zakah and believe in God in the last day. It is these whom we shall soon richly reward. So this, in other words, means that they were good people of the book as well. Among them, of course, there were people who were guilty of stopping others to tread the path of God, who were charging interest, and they were consuming the wealth of other people through illegal means, unjust means. But the Quran says, in spite of this group, there was another group. There was another group, لَكِنِ الرَّاسِخُونَ فِي الْعِلْمِ minhum, among them, those of knowledge among them, وَالْمُؤْمِنُونَ يُؤْمِنُونَ بِمَا أُنزِلَ إِلَيْكَ, and those who have faith believe in what has been revealed to you and what was revealed before you, and are especially diligent in the prayer. So, those of deep knowledge among them and those who have faith believe in what has been revealed to you and what was revealed before you, and are especially diligent in the prayer and pay zakat and believe in God in the last day. It is these whom we shall soon richly reward. So this verse actually means, it refers to the means which are against justice, honesty, fairness, and against the good conventions of a society. So these are the people who are in the same way going to believe in all these things without being put to the test. They have this transparent nature in which whenever they feel something which is absolutely according to their nature and according to their conscience, they don't take the lead in denying them. They in fact are the first ones to practice them. So we have to understand that the Quran itself is referring to those scholars from among the Jews who had true knowledge of religion, were austere in practicing it, and were also morally upright and sound in all aspects. So those, of course, there were scholars who had taken up to arrogance because of the fact that they thought that the Prophet has come from a different lineage. They hid parts of the Torah. They arrogantly denied the arrival of the last Prophet. But then, as the Quran says, that there were other scholars as well. And then it also refers to other people, that the common masses who, though were not scholars, yet because of their upright nature and noble character, they adhere to the Torah to the best of their knowledge, and in this manner can be regarded as true believers. And this character of the people of the book has also been referred elsewhere to the Quran, and you can see how it has been said that they are specially, if you look at this, لَكِنِ الرَّاسِخُونَ فِي الْعِلْمِ, so this refers to the scholars who believe in what was revealed to them and what was revealed before them, and they are ones who adhere to Salah, and they pay zakat, and they believe in God and the last day in reality. And God says, أُولَٰئِكَ سَنُؤْتِيهِمْ أَجْرًا عَظِيمًا, it is these people who we shall richly reward. And then the discourse goes on to say that إِنَّا أَوْحَيْنَا إِلَيْكَ كَمَا أَوْحَيْنَا إِلَى نُوحٍ وَالنَّبِيِّينَ مِنْ بَعْدِهِ وَأَوْحَيْنَا إِلَى إِبْرَاهِيمَ وَإِسْمَاعِيلَ وَإِسْحَاقَ وَيَعْقُوبَ وَالْأَسْبَاطِ وَعِيسَى وَأَيُّوبَ وَيُونُسَ وَهَارُونَ وَسُلَيْمَانَ وَآتَيْنَا دَاوُودَ زَبُورًا. Do not pay heed to them, O Prophet. We have sent revelations to you as we sent revelations to Noah and to the prophets who came after him. We also sent revelations to Abraham, Ishmael, Isaac, Jacob and his progeny, and to Jesus, Job, Jonah, Aaron, Solomon, and we had given the Psalms to David. We had also sent revelations to messengers whom we have mentioned to you earlier, and also to messengers whom we have not mentioned to you. And with Moses God had spoken, وَكَلَّمَ اللَّهُ مُوسَى تَكْلِيمًا, the way speech is made. رُسُلًا مُبَشِّرِينَ وَمُنذِرِينَ, these messengers who were sent as bearers of glad tidings and of warnings, so that after these messengers people are left with no excuse which they can present before God. رُسُلًا مُبَشِّرِينَ وَمُنذِرِينَ لِأَلَّا يَكُونَ لِلنَّاسِ عَلَى اللَّهِ حُجَّةٌ بَعْدَ الرُّسُلِ وَكَانَ اللَّهُ عَزِيزًا حَكِيمًا. So we have to understand that as far as these people are concerned, the messengers that were sent, They were bearers of glad tidings, and of course, they were bearers of warnings as well. And the reason that they were sent is that people should not in any way have any doubt about the fact that these rusul, these messengers, they are all meant to give the same message. They brought the same message. Only thing is, the way that they presented their message might be different in some certain aspects, but essentially, the message that was presented by all this list that we have just read, Jonah and Job and Noah and Jesus and Moses, all of them are the ones that were given, that who were made messengers by God, and they were given divine revelation, and that is something that was sent to them. So the reason that the Almighty is cited for which these messengers are sent, that needs something of our own attention. It says, "Allah yakuna linnasi alallahi hujjatum ba'da rusul," which means that they are sent so that people who receive them, they are left with no excuse which they can present, which means what is presented to them is presented in such an ultimate form, in such a final form, that they would be having no pretext against God. They cannot in any way deny, they cannot in any way say that we never received the message. In fact, they will be fully convinced of what is said, and that is why the Almighty says that I have sent these messengers. So I'm going to end my session here with verse 165, and before we begin its literal and idiomatic translation, if you have any questions, you have the time to raise them.
Assalamu alaikum, Dr. Saleem. Assalamu alaikum, fellow students. We have a series of questions here. Dr. Saleem, thank you for your wonderful explanation. Imran, please unmute your mic and ask your question.
Assalamu alaikum, Dr. Shehzad. Thank you very much for a very informative session. So, first, I need your suggestion on if there is a book that one can read about Jesus' crucifixion or lack thereof, because we believe from Qur'an, but it doesn't give you the details. And then also, I wanted to find out why some people make an argument that mutafafiq means not death, but like he was taken up fully. What is their argument,
So their argument is just hadith literature. Because you see, when they think that Jesus is said to return, as some hadiths say, or if in fact many of them say, so they could not have given death to Jesus, because once a person dies, how is he said to return? So because they think that there are a number of ahadiths which portray the second coming of Jesus, or the advent of Jesus a second time. Yes. So they think that he has been lifted up alive and he'll be back near the end of times.
But Quran doesn't say that he's going to return.
Not only it doesn't say, in fact, it says something which is entirely opposite to this understanding. It says that once you have died, you'll pass away, and there are areas in the Quran in which the Almighty has conversed with Jesus that this is what's going to happen, and on the Day of Judgment also this dialogue between God and Jesus is depicted at the end of Surah al-Nisa, in which it is said that once you passed away, did you ask your people to worship you and your mother? And Jesus said, no, it never happened, because once I passed away, kunta anta raqib alayhim, you were the one who watched over them. I never knew what happened once I died. So had this been the case that he had to come back, he would have seen that the remaining followers of his had actually indulged in making him a son of God, or maybe the son of the mother of God. I mean, this clearly shows that he would express his lack of information, which can only happen, of course, when once he has died, he has died. He's not going to return.
I see. Thank you. And thank you very much. And what about the book? Do you have any recommendation that we could read upon? Because Quran, simply says he wasn't, Mamas Qataluhu.
Yeah, I think I refer to that. You can just read the book of the Gospel of Barnabas. You can just type it in any search engine, in any language, you'll find it available. And you can just then open it up near the scene of the crucifixion, and you'll find all these details. And I mean, what we actually believe is that what the Gospel of Barnabas has depicted is something which is very probable to have happened.
And you must have heard the Orientalists in UK and the US say that this book of Barnabas, or the book Gospel, unlike the Epistle of Barnabas, was written in the 16th century, and they can't trace it back to the 1st or the 2nd century.
So, I mean, so these are all kinds of historical debates that have been raised against the Gospel of Barnabas. But The thing is that we are more concerned of the content of what it says. I mean, there are the discussions regarding its provenance, but I think if you look at the content, regardless of the origin, I mean, you see, of course, even if it was written in the 16th century, it could not have been written by anyone by just reproducing it or falsely ascribing it. It could have been the fact that something was there which was copied, maybe, or disseminated. So I think we are referring more to the content of the scripture, which seems to be very likely to be the case, actually.
Thank you very much. Jazakumullah khair. Thank you.
Dr. Muhammad Arif, please ask your question.
Yes, in verse 162, the wordings wal muqimina salah, it's atf on al mu'minun, but it has become mansoob. I mean, instead of wal muqimuna salata, it's now given here as well muqimina salah. I mean, it has become mansoob. What's the reason for this change in usloob of this?
I mean, this is like nasab. It's called nasab al-ikhtisas, which means akhussu al-muqimin as-salat in particular. So if you say something in which you would like to praise someone specially, then you change this whole structure and you convert it from nominative form to the accusative form. So the words wal muqimin as-salat would actually mean that especially those who are diligent in the prayer. So it's like a word like akhussu, which means that I make special or specific these people who offer the salat. So al-muqimin as-salat basically is a nasab that has occurred because of what we call nasab al-mad, which means that you like to praise people who are offering salat in a very punctual way.
Okay, thank you. And
something which is very common in
regarding the
classical
verse
Arabic.
157, where it has been mentioned, وَقَوْلِهِمْ إِنَّا قَتَلْنَا الْمِيسَى عِيسَى ابْنَ مَرْيَمَ رَسُولَ اللَّهِ وَمَا قَتَلُوهُ وَمَا صَلَبُوهُ وَلَكِنْ شُبِّهَ لَهُم. Definitely, as you mentioned, this relates to the Jews. But just ahead, it's mentioned one إِنَّ الَّذِينَ اخْتَلَفُوا فِيهِ لَفِي شَكٍّ مِّنْهُ. This doesn't seem to be related to the Jews. To whom it's addressed?
Then who else can you think about them? Any people had different versions of the
because these were
because
the
of the doubt.
Christians. Yes.
So you see, because of
is
the
it
doubt.
related to Christians?
No, it's not related to the Christians, because I mean they were. So basically, what is being said here, that because of the doubt that had been raised about what had actually happened, they ended up having different opinions. So the doubt was the cause of having different opinions.
Because if these are the Jews, definitely they were of the view that they have killed the Jesus. There is no ikhtilaf. But now the Quran is mentioning وَإِنَّ الَّذِينَ اخْتَلَفُوا فِيهِ. I mean, so this raises question. I mean, these are really the addressees are the Jews or some other faction?
No, so you see, what has happened is that there are people who are disagreeing with this. You see, the fact is the words say وَإِنَّ الَّذِينَ اخْتَلَفُوا فِيهِ. Said those who are disagreeing in what actually has happened are the ones who are inflicted with this doubt. So whoever is disagreeing, whether they belong to the Jews or the Christians or any followers, we have a whole history of them. So they have a host of different opinions. If you look at the Bible, that what had happened to Jesus, was he raised up on the third day? Was he raised up in form or flesh? Was he raised up in a dream? What was he raised up actually? So you see, this is how the Bible portrays that what actually happened. So regardless of who they were, basically, I mean, there could be a faction among the Jews as well. Then there could be followers of Jesus or other people around them. The Quran does not actually pinpoint them. So it's like a generic word which says that whoever differed in whatever happened, and all those people who differed in the actual sense, they have been inflicted with these doubts.
Okay, so it means these are not specifically the Jews as is in the previous sentence.
Because the Quran is not specified. I mean, there could be people among the Jews also who are, because you see, not everyone was present there when this whole incident was taking place. There were other people who doubted what had happened. So it's like a general statement being given by the Quran that people who were not fully sure of what had happened, they were inflicted with all kinds of doubts.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you for that, Dr. Saleem. Shabnam, please unmute your mic and ask your question.
थैंक यू बिस्मा सर ये आज हमने जो आयत पढ़ी बिल्कुल शुरू में ही अल्लाह ताला ने जिक्र किया कोहे तूर को बुलंद करने का और जू से अल्लाह ताला ने अहद लिया सर अल्लाह ताला कुरान में एक जगह कहते हैं ला इक्राहा फिद्दीन सर तो कोई जबर नहीं तो फिर ये तो इसके अगेंस्ट आ रहा है कि जाहिर है ये तो और टाइम्स के लिए अल्लाह का रूल है ना तो फिर अल्लाह ताला ने जबरदस्ती क्यों उनसे अहद लिया
So the words like Rafiddin do not relate to the law of Risala. I mean, because that's an entirely different thing. Because otherwise, this case can be made against God all the time that, well, if there's no like Rafiddin, that why are people going to be punished in the hereafter? So you see, it's not related to the concept of Risala. In the post-prophetic period, there is no such thing as like Rafiddin. In the prophetic period, of course, they have to either profess faith or face the music. So this verse like Rafiddin relates to the post-prophetic period, if you look at the context.
राइट सर लेकिन सर वो अल्लाह ताला उन्हें छोड़ देते अल्लाह ताला ने दुनिया के लिए ये कहा है ना आखिरत मतलब उनके हमारे पास चॉइस है अगर हम छोड़ देंगे तो भुगतेंगे आखिरत में
No, you see, what has happened is that God has created miniature days of judgment in this world, which are a reflection of that greater day of judgment. So in these miniature days of judgment, they were given the time, they were given the opportunity, the truth was conveyed to them, and when it became evident that they were deliberately denying, they were punished in this world. So this era, which is the prophetic era, has a special law in it in which people are punished in this world for their misdoing. But it's not the case in the post-prophetic era. So the verse like Rafiddin does not relate to the prophetic era, because in that case or in that situation, just as people are going to be punished in the hereafter, that's also, I mean, something that would go against like Rafiddin if you take this interpretation. So the interpretation is that when God is going to punish them, then that is something which is going to do. But as far as accepting faith in this world is concerned, in the post-prophetic era, there's no compulsion. Whether you would like or whether you would not like, you're not being forced to do it. But the consequences are going to be there. No one is going to hold you by the neck and say that believe in this or believe in that. But that would be your own choice. So in the post-prophetic era, it's entirely your choice. And the consequence is something that you will have to face.
Right, sir. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Just a reminder to everyone that right now we're only asking questions pertaining to what we are studying. So please keep that in mind when you're asking your questions. Shabana Ansari, please unmute your mic and ask your question.
अस्सलाम वालेकुम डॉक्टर साहब इसमें आप हजरत मरियम के बारे में आप बता रहे थे कि हजरत ईसा के बाद उन्होंने उन पर बहतान लगाना शुरू किया तो कुछ उनकी किताब में कुछ है कि मतलब कब तक वो जिंदा रही हजरत मरियम और क्या फिर मजीद उन्होंने उनके साथ सलूक किया और दूसरा एक छोटा सवाल ये है कि हदीस तो जैसे एक सदी के बाद इकट्ठा की गई है तो सहाबा कराम के आसार में कोई चीज ऐसी है कि उन्होंने इस टॉपिक को अहमियत दी हो हजरत ईसा का जिंदा उठाया जाना या मुर्दा उठाया जाना या आना या जाना क्योंकि इसराइलियात से तो मुतासिर होके ये एक अच्छा रोमांटिक आइडिया है
So basically, these narratives which depict the fact that Jesus is going to return, and if you look at the some of the narratives, you'll find that the first narrative that is found regarding the descent of Jesus is basically a dream that is shown to the Prophet that he is in circumambulating the Kaaba and he finds that Jesus is also circumambulating together with the Dajjal. And so that is something which the Prophet was shown in a dream, and it seems that it is something that was shown in a dream that took the form of an actual arrival of Jesus, as has been depicted in other narratives. And a whole series of this is something that we can see in the narratives that have been recorded in Bukhari and in some of the other books. So basically, it was a dream of the Prophet that was shown that the arrival of Jesus, as if he was going to arrive, and then there would be a whole new revival of Christianity, and Christianity will undergo a second revival. If you look at the words of the ahadith, it say that he's going to break the cross, he's going to kill the swine, etc. So these are all symbolisms, which means that polytheism or Jesus being regarded as the Son of God, that's going to end one day. Similarly, breaking the cross would mean that there is no such thing as his crucifixion, And the fact that he would kill the swine would mean that the way Paul had actually abrogated the Sharia, that would once again be taken back. So basically, the interpretation of Ustad Ghamidi is that these narratives which tell us about the return of Jesus, these narratives do not tell about a physical return of Jesus. It's like a dream shown to Prophet Muhammad. And if you look at all the details of that dream, what comes to mind is that there is going to be a very major reformation of Christianity near the end of time. And in that reformation,
क्योंकि
Sharia will be
मसीहा का
restored.
इंतजार जी 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 मसीहा का इंतजार तो क्योंकि वो एक रोमांटिक सा आइडिया है ना कि खुद तो कुछ नहीं करना पड़ेगा वही सब कुछ कर लेंगे जो भी मसीहा आएगा
Yes, you see,
So-
because of the fact that they have interpreted these narratives in the literal sense, that Jesus is going to physically come down, that has
जी।
what actually caused this whole scenario.
जी, वो बताती है पहला क्वेश्चन जो हजरत मरियम के बारे में कि वो कितने अरसे तक रही कुछ है उनका जिक्र ऐसे वैसे
I
ही
think
मालूम
you'll need to check this up. So I thought that the details regarding Mary or Maryam is something that perhaps you need to look up. At the moment, I'm not fully aware of them.
ओके थैंक यू
Thank you, Dr. Saleem. Akram Bhatti Saab, please unmute your mic and ask your question.
Thank you. Assalamu alaikum, sir. Sir,
Walaikum assalam.
my question is regarding ayah number 159, and I have two parts to my question. One, that who are those addressees, the Christian, the people who are present at the time, or like
The people of the book of the times of Prophet Muhammad. So they are being told that each of these people of the book who is today denying the Prophet or asking for a new book to be revealed to them from the sky, very soon they will realize that the Qur'an that is in front of them is the truth, and this will happen before each of them will die.
so before they die, they all became Muslim.
They'll be convinced of what the Qur'an is telling them is the truth.
So they'll become
believe-
Muslims then, right? They
No. This is something, whether they become Muslims or not, that's another thing. But they will be convinced that they were wrong.
Okay, so it does not belong to the Christian or the Jews today of the day.
I mean, no. It belongs to the people of the book of the times of Prophet Muhammad, not to earlier ones, as has been generally understood.
Yeah, because people are saying that some people
Because you see, the paragraph starts with Yes Aluka Ahlul Kitab. Oh Prophet, these people ask you.
yes,
And
okay.
then the whole discourse has turned into a charge sheet. And then once again, in verse 159, the discourse comes back to the original. And because the Prophet is being told, or the Prophet is being said that these people ask you, then it is said, وَإِن مِّنْ أَهْلِ الْكِتَابِ إِلَّا لَيُؤْمِنَنَّ بِهِ, that these people are asking you to send down a book. Otherwise, they'll not believe. And the situation is that very soon what will happen is that they will believe in this very book that they are at the moment disbelieving in. And this will happen before they die.
Thank you, sir. Understood. Thank you, sir. Jazakallah.
Mr. Naeem Afridi, please unmute your mic and ask your question.
Assalamu alaikum, sir.
Walaikum assalam.
Hope you're doing good. Sir, if you explain a little bit on Rafa Allah, is the scholars differs on this and also Surah al-Imran 55 verse. So, is this angels took Prophet Jesus, Prophet Isa to another land and he died natural death later,
Yes.
and he was
That's
preached?
it. So this is what the Gospel of Barnabas tells us, that when he was about to be crucified, 4 angels came and they took him away so that he'll not be crucified. And in his place, Judas was made to resemble him, and they caught hold of him and they thought that he is the one who is Jesus, and they ultimately ended up crucifying him. But these angels took him away, and obviously from the statement of the Quran, it becomes clear that he was given a natural death and he was buried maybe somewhere, and the Jews were not allowed to have access to his body because there was a chance that they would mutilate the body, and they never knew what happened to the body. So that is what is meant by the word "but rafa'ahullahu ilayhi," that God is going to lift him up, which means that no one is going to be able to harm his body. And the word mutawaffika in Surah al-Imran verse 55 tells us that he was given death. And the word tawaffa, whenever it comes in an object, the maf'ul is a living being, it can only mean that he has given, the word tawaffa means death. It cannot mean to take something completely to oneself, as has been generally interpreted. So you see, in order to understand a dictionary of Arabic, you have to understand that the meanings of the word with the maful, the grammatical object, they change. So if you look at any dictionary, you'll find that whenever tawaffa is mentioned with a rajul, tawaffa is mentioned with a human being, it always means giving that person death. And this is a, unmistakable thing that is found in every major dictionary. And because of the fact that people have extended it to take someone or to take possession of someone, but that word, the meaning of that tawaffa is when it occurs with some other thing other than a rajul. Tawaffa al-amr, it means to take something fully in one's grasp. But whenever it is tawaffa rajul, which means that the maful or the grammatical object is a human death. So this is, I would say, a deciding factor regarding the meaning of the word tawaffa. And every single dictionary of Arabic specifies it.
Jazakallah. Thank you.
Mansoor Ahmed Saab, please unmute your mic and ask your question.
सर अपार्ट फ्रॉम सुन्नी एंड शिया एक बात की जाती है कि रिटर्न ऑफ जीसस नुज़ूल मसीह के ऊपर पूरी इंसानियत का इजमा है, तो इस बात को किस तरह से एड्रेस किया जाए?
So I think we at the moment we have had enough discussion on this. I have given a detailed lecture on this, written on this in detail, and you'll if you look at Ustad Ghamidi's series of lectures on the return of Jesus, you can find out how erroneously this has been mentioned. And the crux of the argument is just one, which we have just discussed, that the word tawaffa in the Quran, the way it has been mentioned, people think that it means to take possession of someone, not to give him death. But I've just specified and clarified that if you pick up any Arabic dictionary, whenever you find the word tawaffa, the word is tawaffa, and the maful or the grammatical object is a human being, then the word tawaffa always means death. So this particular fact has been disregarded by many people because they think that the narratives which tell us that Jesus is coming near the end of time, they interpret them to be a literal recoming of Jesus. Whereas if you look at the Muwatta of Imam Malik, you'll find that it is mentioned in a dream shown to the Prophet. And the rest of the components of the dream have also been extended and formed. I mean, they'll be found in Bukhari and other hadith books. But the word dream is not mentioned there. So the only thing is that you have to connect the Muwatta hadith, which expresses the fact that all this was in a dream shown to the Prophet, that this is something that's going to happen. And the interpretation of this dream, the way it has been expressed, is that Jesus will come, he'll break the cross, he'll kill the swine. It tells us that there will be a major reformation of Christianity, in which Sharia would be restored, in which Jesus being the Son of God, that will once again go away, and all Christians will get to know the reality. So basically, it's a symbolic element that is found in those narratives. But because those narratives have been taken literally, and people think that Jesus is going to literally return one day near the end of times, that this whole mix-up has been created.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Saleem. Dr. Muhammad Asif, please unmute your mic and ask your question.
Yes, in verse in 159, the words la yu'minanna bihi. The zamir in the words bihi, as you explained, it returns to the book being revealed upon the Prophet. And the zamir in the second qabla mawtihi, this returns to the Prophet himself. But
no,
I
not
also
the Prophet himself. No, not the Prophet himself, but the people themselves. Qabla mawtihi, each of these people of the book.
So it's not Prophet, it's the book. Okay.
Yes.
So regarding the people of
People
the
themselves.
people
Yes,
of the
at
book
that
of
time.
that time.
Yes.
So in the first verse, the la yu'minanna bihi, the zamir bihi returns to the holy prophet. The book being revealed. But in one tafsir I read, it returns to the prophet. Actually, this is my question.
So that's what I'm saying, because they have disregarded the whole parenthetical sentence. You see, if you look at the initial part, the whole thing began with yes aluka ahlul kitab, O Prophet, they ask you. But because immediately before this Jesus is being mentioned, so they think that it actually means that before the death of Jesus, every person will profess faith in him. So the question has arisen because the in between verses, which are the parenthetical verses, they don't form the actual discourse. The discourse was just one, and that is they ask you that they will only believe in you when you show them a book to be revealed to them. So in the answer to this, the whole chart sheet was presented, and if you subtract that answer and you just connect this verse 159 to the initial verse 152, that will give you the real picture. So yes, aluka ahlul kitab is actually connected to wa im min ahlil kitab. In between is a whole series of parenthetical sentences, and that is why people have, because of the fact that Jesus is mentioned right before in the previous verse in 158, they think that the antecedent of this pronoun is Jesus. So this
So
whole
in
in between part is basically, as I said, it's just a parenthetical insertion. It's like an answer being given to them. So basically, im min ahlil kitab it relates to yes aluka ahlul kitab. If you look at verse 152, let me just please display the slide. This is verse 152 from which we began actually. Look at this. Verse 154, in fact, not 152. It says, yes aluka ahlul kitab an tunazzila alayhim kitabam minas sama. So you see, the discourse actually starts from here, that these people of the book ask you to reveal the book to them. So in the answer to this, we had a whole series of chart sheets being presented and answers being given. So once they were finished, that final verse was actually the one that we are now studying. وَإِن مِّنْ أَهْلِ الْكِتَابِ إِلَّا لَيُؤْمِنَنَّ بِهِ قَبْلَ مَوْتِهِ. So this is basically connected to يَسْأَلُكَ أَهْلُ الْكِتَابِ. So basically, what is being said here is that before the death of the Prophet, each of these people of the book will be absolutely certain that what is being said to them is true. Whether they believe it or not, they will be absolutely aware of it. And because of that in-between portion not being accounted for, and because in the previous portion we have Jesus being mentioned, in fact in verse 158 it's Jesus being mentioned. So it's like if you're not fully knowledgeable of how these parenthetical sentences work, you will connect this verse 159 to verse 158, whereas this is not the case. From verse 156 to 158, there is a parenthetical insertion, which means that these are parenthetical verses, they are just insertions. 159 goes back to 155 actually.
okay. So it means in this verse, the la yu'minanna bihi, in the first in bihi, in the la yu'minanna, that relates to the book. And in qabla
In
mautihi
the Prophet,
means
the
before the
Prophet of
death
the
of
book
the
is the same
Prophet.
thing. Yes,
Okay.
Qabla Mauti would mean before each of them dies. Each of these people of the book will believe in this book and the Prophet, because the Prophet and the book are interchangeable, before their own death, before the death of each of these people of the book.
Okay, so you are referring to bihi in
Yes.
qabla
La
mautihi,
yu'minanna bihi.
in mautihi, each of the people of the book of that time.
Yes,
Okay.
correct.
Thank you.
Dr. Saleem, we have a question in the chat. I'm not really sure if this is pertinent, but it may be because we're talking about Jesus. If Jesus is not to return, who is to defeat Dajjal?
Well, let's see who's going to defeat Dajjal, but certainly he's not the one. He's not the candidate to beat him, because, as I said, this is something which is not mentioned in the Quran. The ahadith actually refer to the fact that this is a symbolic coming of Jesus, in which religion will be restored, or Christianity will be restored to its original form, of course, which is close to Islam.
Okay.
What will happen to Dajjal is something that is that's another question. I mean, what we are absolutely sure of is that Jesus is not going to take care of him.
Okay. Salman Aziz, please unmute your mic and ask your question, and I hope it's related to the passage.
So there was the ayat that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has sent the prophets so that people don't have an excuse on the day of judgment, that they were not guided. But still there, I've heard a couple of times the QA sessions on other scholarly forums that there might be people in the world who have not ever encountered any prophet. So to that, the answer is generally given that فَعَلَمَهَا فُجُورًا وَتَقْوَاهَا, that they're all programmed about the good or bad. So, what about this ayat? This ayat is generic or definite? Could you please guide about this thing?
Which verse are you referring to?
There was an ayat that we have sent the prophet so that people don't have any excuse. Probably the last ayat of the session today.
No, that's entirely different. That says that these messages have been sent so that people are left with no excuse. I mean,
Yes,
now
sir.
they will have
Can't
no
think I'm saying
excuse.
that, but still, there is a debate that there might be people on this
Yes,
earth
so
in
for
these
that,
times
yes,
of
sir, now,
later.
okay, I get your point. So for that, we've already discussed that earlier on, that in Surah Araf, there is this verse which says that all of humanity's souls were taken out before they were sent in this world, and a covenant was made with them. And Almighty said, Alastu bi rabbikum, am I not your Lord? And they said, yes. And he said, okay, then please remember this, because then you will not present this as an excuse that something did not reach you, or your own forefathers were committed to polytheism. So to people to whom any messenger of God is not going to reach, or his message is not going to reach, he or such people will be held accountable on the basis of the concept of God that they have in their own intuition, and on the basis of good or bad deeds that they do as per their conscience. So for them, it would not be essential. They'll not be asked why they did not believe in a messenger of God, because the message never reached them. But of course, two other things: one, the concept of God, and two, accountability as per the conscience that they have is something on the basis of which they'll be held accountable.
Thank you for that, Dr. Saleem. No more raised hands at this time. You can please continue with the
Okay.
session.
So I'm not now just going to. One thing that I might once again perhaps reiterate, so that this confusion it seems to be lingering on, that the fact that Min Ahlil Kitab actually refers to the fact that the people of the book of the Prophet's times, in his time, they were obviously objecting to the fact that there's not going to be an accountability, or they're not going to believe him. So Min Ahlil Kitab, these are actually words of warning and threat. So what they are being told is that today what the Prophet is trying to make them understand through the force of reasoning will materialize into reality in the near future. They should contemplate on what they will do at that time. They will have no option but at that time to accept it. So remember, the accountability of the people of the book was going to take place in this world. And as a result of that accountability, they would be knowing before they would die that what the Prophet and the Quran is telling them is absolutely the truth. So this verse Min Ahlil Kitab is actually referring to this, that don't take matters to this end, that ultimately you will be left with nothing. You will be actually realizing that you had done something wrong, but at that time it would be too late to accept faith. So this is the exact stress of that verse. Okay, so we'll go back and start our literal and idiomatic translation. Starting from verse 152, it says, Yes, Aluka Ahlul Kitab. Yes, Aluka, they ask you. You, of course, referring to Prophet Muhammad. Ahlul Kitab, people of the book. So these people of the book ask you, that Tunazzila be revealed, alayhim. They ask you they ask you to bring down directly upon them a book. Tunazzila alayhim, to bring down upon them. Kitaban, a book. Minas samai, from the heavens. Fa, therefore, qad, indeed, sa'alu, they asked Musa, Moses, akbar, greater, min zalika, than this. So these people of the book, they are asking you to bring down a book from them from the skies. But the fact is that they asked Moses something even greater. Faqad sa'alu, indeed, sa'alu, they asked Moses, Musa, akbar min zalik, greater than this. Akbar min zalik, greater than this, something even more greater. And what did it say? Faqalu, therefore, qalu, they said, Arina, show us, Allah, God, show us God, jahratan, face to face, openly. Show us God openly. Therefore, akhazathum, got hold of them, as-sa'iqa, a thunderbolt, the thunderbolt, bizulmihim, because of their injustice. So a thunderbolt struck them, or got hold of them, because of their injustice. Of course, injustice here referring to their rebelliousness. Summa means thereafter. Ittakhazu, they held on. Al-ijl, the calf, they held on to the calf, of course referring to the fact that they made that calf a god. They started to worship that calf. Min ba'di, after, ma ja'athum, came to them, al-bayyinat, clear signs. So they held on to the calf as a deity after clear signs had come to them. Fa'arfauna, therefore, arfauna, we forgave, anzalika, from them, or from these things. So we forgave them or from these things, or from these sins. Wa, and ataina, we gave Musa, Moses, sultana means evidence, mubina, clear. So we gave Moses a clear evidence, and which of course here refers to the fact that Moses was given a clear dominance over them. And what was that dominance? Wa, of course, that dominance we have already discussed earlier on, that they were asked to kill every single person who had committed polytheism. Wa, and rafa'na, we held aloft, to raise something, to raise high something. Fawqahum, over them. Fawq, over whom, them. So we raised high over them at-Tur, the Mount Tur, bimisaqihim, with a covenant. With a covenant. Misaq, covenant. Him, them. So with a covenant with them. Wa, and qulna, we said lahum, to them. We said to them, udkhulu, udkhulu, enter. Al-bab, the gate. Enter the gate. Sujjada, while bowing down. Wa, and qulna, we said lahum, to them. La, not. Ta'adu, commit excess. Fis sabt, regarding the Sabbath. Do not commit excess regarding the Sabbath. Wa, and akhazna. Akhazna means we took. Minhum means from them. Min, from whom, them. And we took from them misaq, covenant. Ghaliz, very firm. Again, something that we have explained earlier, that at times a word is used in different languages with different meanings, but it doesn't mean that it has the same meanings. For example, the word ghaliz in Arabic means something which is very stern, something which is very firm, while we know that its Urdu connotation is something which is very filthy. So misaq and ghaliza, we took a firm covenant from them. Fabima naqdihim, fa, because. Fa, therefore, bima, because, naqdihim, they broke, misaqahum, their covenant. So because they broke their covenant, wa, and kufrihim, because they showed disbelief bi ayatillahi, in the verses of God, in the revelations of God, wa qatlihim, and because they killed al-anbiya, their prophets, bi ghayri haqq, without any justification. Wa, and qawlihim, and their statement. What was their statement? Kulubuna ghulf, that our hearts are in covers, which means that we cannot hear anything. Our hearts are totally covered. Bal, in fact, taba'a, stamped Allah on them. Allah, alayha, on them, on their hearts. In fact, God has stamped a seal on their hearts. Bikufrihim, because of their disbelief. Fa, therefore, la, not. Yu'minuna, they believe. Illa, except. Qalila, less. So they seldom believe. God has stamped or sealed their hearts because of their kufr, because of their disbelief. So they will seldom embrace faith. They will seldom accept faith. Wa, and bikufrihim, because of their disbelief. Bikufr, because of disbelief. Him, there, because of their disbelief. Wa, and qawlihim, and their statement. Ala, on. Maryam, Mary. Buhtan, slander. Azima, huge. So because of their disbelief and because of their very, very great slander against Mary, qawlihim ala Maryam, Buhtanan azima. Wa, and qawlihim, and their statement. What is their statement? Inna, indeed. Qatalna, we have killed. Al-Masih, we have killed the Messiah. And who is the Messiah? Isa ibn Maryam, Jesus, son of God. Rasulullah, messenger of God. So their statement that we have killed the Messiah, Jesus, son of Mary, son of Mary, messenger of God. Now the rebuttal. Wa, and ma, not. Qataluhu, they have killed him. They have not killed him. Wa, and ma, not. Salabuhu, crucified him. So they have not killed him and they have not crucified him. Walakin means but. Shubbiha lahum, the matter has been made ambiguous upon them. Shubbiha, made ambiguous. Lahum, for them. The matter has been made ambiguous for them. Wa, and. Inna, indeed. Allazina, those who. Ikhtalafu fihi. Ikhtalafu fihi means who differ in this. Differ in the fact that what exactly happened to Jesus. La, therefore, fi in shakkin, doubt, minhu, from it. So those who differ in what happened, they are in a doubt from that, which means that they are inflicted with doubts that what exactly happened. Ma, not. Lahum, for them. Bihi, regarding it. Min ilm, any knowledge. They do not have any knowledge about it. Illat azan, except they follow conjecture. So they don't have any definite knowledge as to what happened. They are just conjecturing, they are just speculating. Wa, and. Ma, not. Qataluhu, killed him. Yaqina, certainly. So they did not certainly kill him. This never happened. And what exactly happened? Bal, in fact. Rafa'ahu, lifted him. Allah, God. Ilayhi, towards himself. In fact, God lifted him towards himself. Wa, and. Kana, is. Allah, God. Azizan, powerful. Hakima, wise. And God is powerful and wise. Wa, and. In is actually inna, which has been reduced to in. Wa, and. In, indeed, min. So in fact is nafiya, is a negation. Wa im min ahlil kitab means wa, and in is not actually. So the correct translation, I'm going to correct myself, it's not inna, it's not. And not min, from ahlil kitab, among the ahlil kitab, illa, except. And not from the people of the book, except those la yu'minanna bihi, who will profess faith, in it, which is the Quran, qabla mautihi, before that people of the book, or before that person of the book passes away. So each of these people of the book, before they pass away, in fact, they will profess faith in it, in the Quran. And that is what is being mentioned here. Will definitely believe in the Quran. Wa yawmal qiyamati yakunu alayhim shahida. Wa, and. Yawmal qiyamah, on the day of judgment. Yakunu, will. Alayhim, on them. Shahida, witness. And on the day of judgment, it will be a witness on them. So they will believe in this Quran before they die. Not only this will happen, but in the next world, it will be a witness over them as well. فَبِظُلْمٍ مِّنَ الَّذِينَ هَادُوا. Fa, therefore, بِظُلْمٍ, because of their zulm, because of their injustice, مِّنَ الَّذِينَ هَادُوا, of those who are called the Jews, or those who call themselves the Jews. فَبِظُلْمٍ مِّنَ الَّذِينَ هَادُوا would mean, because of the injustice of the Jews, what did we do? حَرَّمْنَا, we prohibited, alayhim, on them, tayyibat, things which are allowed or wholesome, uhillat, that were halal, lahum, to them, things that were allowed to them. So because of their zulm, or because of the zulm of those people who are the Jews, so literally it would mean, because of the zulm of those who are the Jews, because of the injustice of those who are the Jews, we prohibited on them wholesome things, uhillat lahum, which were allowed to them. Wa, because, bisaddihim, and their stopping, an sabilillah, from the path of God, kasira, a lot. So because of their stopping a lot people from following the path of God, so they would do this a lot, they would stop people from following the path of God. So this is the chart sheet that is being presented, and it is continuing in the next verse. Wa, and. Akhzihim. Akhzihim means they charging. Riba. And because of their charging of riba, or because of their consumption of riba, wa, and. Qad, indeed. Nuhu anhu, they were stopped from it. So they started charging riba, whereas they had been stopped from it. Wa, and. Aklihim, and because of their devouring, amwal nas, the wealth of people, bil batil, by unjust means. So because of their consuming of riba, and whereas they had been prohibited from it, they were prohibited to charge interest, aklihim, and their consumption of the wealth of people, amwal nas, bil batil. Bil batil means unjust means. Unjust means, wa, and. A'tadna, we prepared, lil kafirin, for the disbelievers, minhum, from among them, azab, punishment, aleem, very grave. So we have prepared for these disbelievers among them a very grave punishment. Lakin, but, ar-rasikhuna fil ilm, those who are endowed with deep knowledge, minhum, from among them, and wal mu'minuna, and those who believe, and wal mu'minuna, and those who believe, yu'minuna, they have faith, bima unzila ilayka, in what has been revealed to you, wama, wa, and ma, that, unzila, revealed, min qablika, before you. So literally it would mean that except for those who have deepened knowledge from among them, the deepened knowledge from among them, and those believers who have faith in what has been revealed, bima unzila ilayka, to you, referring to the Quran, wama unzila min qablik, and that which was revealed before you, qablik, wa, and al muqimin, they adhere, as salat, the prayer, and they adhere to the prayer, wa, and al mu'tun, they pay zakat, the zakat, so they pay zakat, wa, and al mu'minuna, they believe, billahi, in God, wal yawmil akhir, and in the last day. Now the result of all this is said, and what is that result? Ulaika sanu'tihim ajran azima, ulaika, these, sanu'tihim, we shall soon give, ajran, reward, azima, great. So these are the people who will be very soon, we will give a great reward, ajran azima. Inna, indeed we, inna is indeed we, awhayna means we have sent, ilayka, to you, kama, the way, awhayna, we revealed, ila, towards, nuhin, Noah. So it means that, O Prophet, we have revealed to you the way we revealed to Noah, wa, and an-nabiyyin, the prophets, min ba'dihi, after him, after Moses, after Noah. So we have revealed to you the way we have revealed to Noah and the prophets after him. Wa, and awhayna, we have revealed, ila, towards, Ibrahim, Abraham, wa Ismail, and Ishmael, wa Ishaq, and Isaac, wa Yaqub, and Jacob, wal asbat, and his progeny, or asbat means progeny, children, wa, and Isa, Jesus, wa, and Ayub, Job, wa, and Yunus, Jonah, wa, and Harun, Aaron, wa, and Suleiman, Solomon. So all these prophets, they have been revealed in the same way the prophet was revealed. So he was sent divine revelations the way these prophets were sent divine revelations. Wa atayna, wa, and atayna, we gave, Davuda, David, Zabura, the Psalms, and we gave David the Psalms. Wa, and Rusulan, messengers, qad, indeed, qasasnahum, we mentioned about them, alayka, to you. So there are messengers about whom we mentioned to you, min qabl, before, wa, and rusulan, and messengers, lam naqsus alayka, we have not mentioned them to you. So in other words, what is being said here is that we have mentioned to you earlier these messengers, and there are some other messengers we have not mentioned to you. In other words, what the Quran is telling us, that only a few of the messengers, in fact, people say that around 30 of them have been mentioned in the Quran, otherwise there were many other messengers and their names have not been mentioned. So that is precisely what is being said here, that there are some about whom we have mentioned to you earlier, and there are others we have not mentioned to you. We have not narrated about them to you. Wa, and Kallama, spoke, Allah, God, and God spoke, Musa, to Moses, Taklima, the way things are, the way it is spoken. So God actually spoke to Moses the way speech is made. And then this is an explanation. Rusulan, those messengers who are what? Mubashirin, who give glad tidings. Wa, and Munzirin, who give warnings. So these messengers, they give glad tidings and they give warnings. Li Allah, so that not. Yakuna is linnase, for the people. Alallahi, upon God. Hujjatun, any excuse. Ba'da rusul, after the advent of these messengers. So in other words, These messengers have been sent as bearers of glad tidings and as deliverer of warnings, so that after their arrival there remains no excuse for you against God. La li'alla yakuna linnas, so that does not remain for people alallahi against God hujja. Hujja means any excuse. Ba'da rusul, after the advent of these messengers. Wa, and kanallahu, God is azizan, powerful, hakima, wise, and God is powerful and wise. So with this we come to an end to the literal and idiomatic translation of the passage that we have just studied, and now we can have any questions until the end of time.
Imran, please unmute your mic and ask your question. Thank you.
Sure, thank you. Thank you, Dr. Shehzad. Just a quick question on this verse 161. What it says about the riba, and then it ends with وَأَعْتَدْنَا لِلْكَافِرِينَ مِنْهُمْ عَذَابًا عَلِيمًا. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala prepared for the kafirin from them adab.
Yes,
What does that
from
mean?
among the Jews. You see, the earlier verses is وَمِنَ الَّذِينَ هَادُوا, from among these Jews.
So it's like that means part of them will get the
Part of them, of course, because some of them they were good people. They professed faith. They never indulged in taking riba. So not all the Jews have been indicted here.
I see. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Saleem. Dr. Muhammad Asif, please unmute your mic and ask your question. Thank you.
In verse 165, that starts with Rusulam Mubashirina wa Munzirin. Here the words Rusulan. I mean, is this a new sentence that starts with some omitted verb like Arsala Rusulan and it's mansoob from some omitted word? Or is it continuation of the verse 162 that starts with Wa'awhayna? So we can say Wa'awhayna Rusulam Mubashirina wa Munzirina.
No,
So it becomes
actually,
continuation of the earlier verse
It
162.
actually is connected to the previous verse. If you look at verse 164, it says "Va rusulan kat kasasnahum alayk." So the word rusulan is actually mansoob because of the verb kasasna, and the rusul in verse 165 is coordinated to the rusul of verse 164, which says that they are messengers about whom we narrated their accounts to you, and there were other messengers about whom we did not narrate to you. And these messengers are the ones who are sent as bearers of glad tidings and as deliverers of warning. So the word rusul is actually coordinated to the word rusul in the immediately previous verse, which is verse 164. Wa rusulun kat kasasna wa rusulun lam naqsushum alayk. So this is where the rasul has come from, and it is like it's like being repeated. That rasul which is found in verse 164 twice is the same one that has been repeated in verse 165.
But in verse 164, Waqad, where is it mentioned? I just
Kat kasasnahum. They are
Kasasnahum.
messengers
It's
about
again
whom we.
from Inna Ohina. It's connected with that.
So that is, I mean, in essence, that you're right about that. But we are talking about the grammatical origin of the word rusul. So the grammatical origin owes itself to verse 164, in which the word rusul is mentioned, and then the word in 165, the same word is mentioned, that these are the messengers who are bearers of glad tidings and deliverers of warnings. So there are some messengers about whom we narrated to you, and there are others we did not narrate to you. But regardless of whether we narrated to you or not narrate to you, messengers are meant for glad tidings and warnings. This is the grammatical sense.
Okay, thank you.
Dr. Saleem, there are no more raised hands at this time. I have a question. I'm not sure if it's related to the passage today. So the tour that's mentioned in Surah Araf, where God showed himself to Moses, is it the same tour as this one?
Yes, the same.
Oh, and was that one turned to dust? What does that mean? It was turned to
No, it
dust?
says "Warafana fawqahum," and you're talking about the fact in which the mountain was crushed.
Yes. It's the same one, right? As the one we
So
mentioned today?
that's a different one. So that was a mountain that was mentioned, that and God said that if you're able to bear the disclosure of God on the mountain which is in front of you, then you'll be able to see me. So that's not a named mountain. That's any mountain that was in front of him.
Okay. And then another question I had was that all the prophets, when the nations tried to kill them right towards after their message had been delivered, was anybody actually killed, or were they all able to leave with the people who believed in them?
You're talking about which prophet, Moses or
All the
Muhammad?
prophets, like the prophets that came into Islam, who brought Islam, were any of the prophets killed by the people who didn't believe in them?
Yes, yes. We find Yahya to be killed. We find Zachariah to be killed. So these are two very famous examples which we find in the Bible. Both of them were actually assassinated.
Okay. Thank you, Dr. Saleem. Imran, please unmute your mic and ask your question.
Dr. Shehzad, quick question about what's the difference between Tur and Jabal?
So Tur is the name of a Jabal. Jabal is a mountain. Tur is the name of a mountain.
And then when they say Tur Sinai, what does that mean? Mount Sinai?
Which means the Tur that is situated in the valley of Sinai.
So is the Tur specific kind of mountains that are more so in the
It seems
middle?
so. It seems to be a group of mountains, or maybe one mountain that lies in the valley of Sinai, and that is why it's also called Sinai.
Why is it called Sinai? Because of the mountains?
Because of the place. The place is called Sinai.
Right. Yes. Thank you.
Okay. So, Dr. Saleem, that mountain that turned to dust when God was talking to Moses, does that exist? Do we know where that is?
No, we don't.
Okay. Okay, I have a question in the chat. Where does Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala live? He is Almighty. Is He present everywhere?
I mean, this is a question that we don't have an answer to. It says Huwal Awwal wal Akhir wal Zahir wal Batin. That is the only information which God has disclosed in Surah Hadid, which means that He was there when there was no one. He's going to be there when there is going to be no one. He is the first and He's the last, and He is at the top and He's at the bottom. Which means that in time and space that we are aware of, I mean, He is not confined to the confines of time and space. He is something who's beyond time and space. This time and space is a human construct. It's a human understanding that we have a thing called time, we have a thing called space. But in Surah Hadid, the way God says about Himself, Huwal Awwal wal Akhir wal Zahir wal Batin, it actually means that He is someone who's beyond this space-time continuum. It is we who know what the space-time is, but God is actually beyond the space-time continuum. He's not lying within the space-time. We are lying within the space-time continuum. So human beings are within the space-time continuum. He is someone who cannot be captured in space and time, that so to speak.
Okay. The continuation of this question is, so refer to Balrafa Allah, where was Jesus' physical body taken?
That we don't know. All that we know is that He was just taken away and buried somewhere by the angels, and of course His soul was lifted up to God Himself, and that is all, the way everyone's soul goes to God.
Okay. Mansoor Ahmed, we just have a couple of minutes, so please, you can ask your question, but keep it short. Thank you.
सर इसी कॉन्टेक्स्ट में एक हदीस मिलती है जिसमें है कि अल्लाह आखिरत में अल्लाह ताला को ऐसे ही देखोगे जैसे खुले आसमान पर चांद को देखते हो, तो उसकी ट्रू इंटरप्रिटेशन क्या होगी?
You'll have to send me the reference of that hadith. I haven't seen that. I need to look at it to give you an answer.
Okay, sir. I will post you next time.
Thank you. We are all out of